Hi there! If you're watching this video, you're probably interested in becoming an optometrist and you're wondering about the steps it requires to take the optometry admission test. So stay tuned, hopefully I can answer some of your questions in this video. So first let's talk about admission requirements and what kinds of things are required from optometry schools for your entry into their program. Mainly first you want to get all the prerequisite core courses that you require, and they're fairly conserved across schools, but some schools do have some different requirements. So definitely look at the schools that you're interested in and then choose your courses accordingly. If you're taking your undergraduate program in a science degree, if you're doing a science program, then you're probably already going to have a majority of those prerequisites. I'm taking my undergraduate degree in biological science, so I did have a lot of those prerequisites. The few that I had to take that were different were I had to take 2 English courses, a philosophy, ethics course, and a psychology intro course. So those ones I kind of had to rearrange my schedule to make sure I got those prerequisites. Other than prerequisites, you also need usually 2 or 3 letters of recommendation. Typically the main 2 are to have one from an optometrist and also to have one from a character reference. So someone that can talk about your character. If you had close interactions with your science professor, that's a good one. An employer, that's also a good one. I think on OptomCAS you can have up to 4 references, but 2 to 3 is typically what the schools ask for. Along with the references, you also require optometric experience, so shadowing experience. They want to see if you are active and if you know a lot about optometry, if you've done your research. And the final requirement is the OAT, the optometry admission test. And this is probably the most grueling requirement because it requires the most preparation. It's very, very similar to the DAT, which you would take for dentistry schools, and it's very similar to the MCAT, it's just a little shorter for that you would take in med school. How do you register for the OAT? So the first thing you want to do is go to the ADA website, which is American Dental Association, and this is actually associated with the DAT and the OAT, I believe, the website. But you go to the site and you register for a PIN number. You are required a PIN number so that you can write the OAT. Once you've created your PIN number, you can get access to the Prometric website, from which you can actually register yourself for a date by looking at Prometric centers that are near you, and I believe they're offered all throughout Canada and America and some other countries as well. I would definitely suggest that you try to register for the OAT a minimum of 2 months before you actually are trying to write it, because the dates do fill up and you definitely want to have some buffer time. I took the OAT in early July and actually registered in January to make sure I got the time slots that I wanted. The sections of the OAT. So the OAT is split up into 6 sections. The first section is called the Survey of Natural Sciences, and this section consists of biology, general chemistry, and organic chemistry. The OAT starts off with you doing biology, chemistry, organic chemistry. The whole section as a whole is 100 questions and 90 minutes. You then go straight into the reading comprehension section, which is 40 questions, 3 reading passages. They're typically about 10 paragraphs, depending on the type of passage that you get, and you have 50 minutes to do that section. After the reading comprehension section, you go into your break. So you have an optional 15-minute break. I would definitely recommend you take it. I think it really regroups you before you do the final 2 sections of the OAT. After the break, you go straight into physics, which is 40 questions in 50 minutes, and then the QR section, quantitative reasoning, which is basically just a variety of maths, and it's 45 minutes for 40 questions. The science portion and the math portion of the OAT kind of just cover everything that you should already have learned in your first 2-ish years of your undergraduate studies or your prerequisite courses. So it pretty much has everything in those prereqs. The best way to prepare for reading comprehension is just to do as many practice questions as you can. So definitely buy practice resources, which I'll get into in a second. For quantitative reasoning, that is the only section that you actually get a calculator on the OAT. So you do not get a calculator and you do not get formulas. You have to memorize all of your physics, chemistry formulas, as well as chemical reactions. And for the QR section, you are given a calculator, but it's very tedious because it takes up a lot of time. I did use it for some sections. It can be life-saving for those really long decimal division and multiplication, but try to practice your mental math and definitely get better with decimals and scientific notation. How do you prepare for the OAT? So most resources recommend that you use 8 to 12 weeks, and I would definitely say that that's the perfect amount of time to study for the OAT. A lot of the stuff is going to be active recall because you're going to know a lot of the stuff from your previous courses. So I found that when I was studying, a lot of that information was just coming back really quickly. So I would recommend that you take 10 weeks to study. That's the amount of time I took, but it really depends on how fast you learn. So if you feel like you need more time, take around 2.5 months. I would definitely say not to go over that. I split up my studying by designating the first 5 weeks to learning the content and the last 5 weeks to doing practice. And actually, I think that was the best way that I could have gone about it, because when I did the practice, I actually learned way more than when I did the studying section. I think the key to doing really well on the O is doing a lot of practice. You get familiar with the types of questions that you're going to face, and you're also preparing yourself mentally for the time limit and the sort of mentality that you should have when you're writing the OAT. So the resources I used for the OAT were the Kaplan prep book and OAT Bootcamp, and also OAT Booster. So here is the big purple book that everyone talks about. It's a lot of pages, but it's actually not that bad once you go through it. You realize that it's not actually a lot of content. So the Kaplan, this book actually came with these little pages that you could rip out at the end. I already ripped them out, but they're basically these colorful formula sheets. They're really good to have with you on the go. There's also a guide in the beginning which explains what the OAT is about. That was really helpful because I had no idea. And yeah, it's just divided up into sections. I wouldn't recommend using multiple resources, but I actually did not feel like I was getting enough practice from the Kaplan questions that I was given. And so I wanted additional practice, and that's why I went to OAT Booster. And I would say that OAT Booster and OAT Bootcamp were my favorite. They're very, very similar. They have study plans that you can follow, and they have videos to associate with their lesson plans. And then they have a bunch of practice at the end of their sections. You get 10 full-length practice tests for both Bootcamp and Booster, so I had about 20 full-length tests. I would definitely recommend that you do a bunch of practice tests, full-length tests, kind of like a mock OAT before you actually go in and write the OAT, because it gives you an idea of the mental aspect of how long you'll be sitting in the room and actually writing the test. Along with these 3 resources, that you do your own research as to what you would find is the best for you, because a lot of these resources are very similar. You might want to go with something that's financially a better option for you. You might want a physical textbook. That's also why I got Kaplan, because I liked that it came as a physical textbook. Another thing I wanted to recommend is that you go on Facebook and actually find pre-optometry or OAT study groups. That is one of the main resources I used, because I don't personally know anyone pursuing optometry, and those are the resources I used. I found so many students that were going through the same things as me. How to schedule your studying. So like I said before, you should take about 8 to 12 weeks within that time frame, and I would designate the first few weeks to review. So you definitely want to learn the content, make your notes, do whatever you can to try to absorb that information into your brain, and then once that happens, you can go into your practice. You want to do practice for each section individually, and then you want to do your full-length mock tests, and try to do as many of those as you can possible before you actually write the OAT. I also studied about 5 to 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for those 10 weeks, because I am the kind of person who can concentrate for long periods of time. But if you're the kind of person that can only concentrate for shorter periods of time, take your breaks, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself and you don't want to get burnt out. But just make sure that you're allocating the right amount of time to actually learn the stuff that you need to know. So tips for test day. I would say that the main thing you want to do for test day is to get a lot of sleep the night before. So get into an active schedule where you are sleeping and waking up around the same time of when you would for a test day. I definitely recommend going in with a positive mindset. Don't study the day before, because you need time to relax. And definitely don't forget to bring a snack and water. When you take your 15-minute break, just relieve all that stress and know that you're going to do amazing and move on to the next section. I think I covered everything. If I haven't, definitely leave a comment below. I will get around answering your questions. And just know that you're going to do amazing, because so many of us have written the OAT and it's really not that hard. It just seems overwhelming when you look at it in the beginning. So good luck, and you're going to do amazing.